We're gonna react to one of the craziest strength fitness influencers, and we're gonna start right now. Now, strength coaches, before we all get triggered, we're all upset and sad, let's think through what some of the most important stuff is around training. And I think that as a strength coach, we've got to look at how can we improve, one, strength. Two, you look at the realm of conditioning, whatever that means. In some people's mind, conditioning will be being able to handle high speed movements for a long period of time. Some people that'll be like being in shape. Some people think of that as going for a run, right? But when we start to think about strength and conditioning, in my own personal lens, I like to look at how can we improve someone's ability to produce a large amount of force? How can we improve someone's ability to get stronger? How can we improve their mobility? How can we help them recruit high threshold motor units through all these different patterns, right? How can we help them be faster, more explosive? And then what we have to do is look through the lens of sport characteristics. Okay, so what sports are they playing? What do they need to improve upon to try to keep improving and being elite based off of their own individual capability? And I think that one of the big factors around fitness influencers is that a lot of strength coaches get triggered. A lot of strength coaches will see somebody doing something and they get upset. And the reason why they might get upset is because one of their athletes might bring in a video and say, hey, is this a good exercise? And to be totally fair to the strength and conditioning coaches is that a lot of younger athletes and even a lot of parents, specifically dads who are living vicariously through their children, will look at these movements and say, I need my kid to be doing this exercise so that they get better. But we have to remember, we're seeing a snapshot of what that individual is doing. Now, strength coaches will get triggered because they'll see an exercise and they'll see that this influencer might have more followers on YouTube or more followers on Instagram. They've got a lot of that street cred and they're jealous that their athlete is digesting someone else's content. Okay, trust me, I know this very, very well, mainly because I get jealous sometimes. But what we have to do then as strength and conditioning coaches is look through the lens and say, that's a great movement. Let's stay focused on the positive and let's actually think about where can we piece this exercise in potentially to our own training system. And that's gonna bring me to Real Game Athletics on Instagram. And so I have been asked multiple different times, what do I think about his movement patterns? What do I think about what he's doing? And remember, it's just exercises. That's all we're getting. We're getting exercises. We aren't getting his full blueprint of how he lays everything out. We aren't looking at what his personality is. We aren't looking at who he's trained or anything along those lines. All that matters is, are these exercises good and where can we use them? How can we piece them into our system? We don't need to get upset by someone else who's more creative or who does a better job promoting themselves. Instead, we can use it to our advantage and appreciate what they're doing. So let's check this out. Looking at this, I'm gonna turn the volume up a little bit. Immediately, real simple right off the bat, I wanted to point this out. Just easy exercise, great movement there. Again, it doesn't need to be super fancy. And I've seen through some of these videos prior, and I want to go back because I really like this exercise. It's a nice plyometric that you can do in a small area. Okay, so you don't need a ton of room, but also one thing you're going to see is that we're seeing an improvement or a focus on adduction and abduction. So I think that's what makes this exercise so unique. A lot of focus on deceleration, and then you can see he gets into some field specific work, okay? So one of the big factors too is that I notice in his captions, right? He'll write like, great exercises for rotation, great exercises for agility, and he explains in the captions. So what we can do is watch something like this movement. Oh, I love this. Oh, this one's awesome. And see what's happening, focus on that dynamic trunk control. We know that we have to have that to be elite level athletes. We know we have to have that plyometric capability, so doing things like unilateral jumps, bilateral jumps, right? And so we can look through, oh wow, that's really good. I'm gonna try this today. 100% gonna do this today because I really like this. And it's almost like a abduction with a little bit of a cross body row. This is fantastic. I think that's one thing where I see this stuff, and what I love about creators like Real Game is that you see it And if you're open-minded about it and you read through his caption, okay? He explains how you could possibly use this. And then you can look back and go, okay, this is how he would use this. How would I use this? Where could I piece this into my system? And then for me personally, when I try something like this, I might try it. And what happens is it opens up for like 4 or 5 other exercises. So really, if you get creative from it, it can really improve your overall wherewithal, body mechanics, and how that can impact other athletes. I think that's one of the really, really cool parts. And one of the things that we do inside of our Garage Strength program design is we lay out all this stuff based off of periodization for different sports. We look at those strength characteristics and we try to figure out what's going to improve that. Now, this is one, I have seen this. I love this for fighters. I actually really like this for my throwers. Rotational strength, hip extension. This one's phenomenal. There's some trunk control. There's some hip lock positions here. It's interesting because I feel like some of this stuff's a more digestible Franz Bosch. Oh, this was one I did want to really, really point out that might be one of the coolest, like Duff and Row dead bug. This is very, very good. And so if I look at this movement, watching this, what I would do, great work. Absolutely, both these are great. I would go, okay, if I'm on an impulse day and we're going through impulse day and we're focusing on some type of technical coordination movement, and then we get into like an unbroken single leg squat. After that unbroken single leg squat, I would use this exercise at the end because it's gonna light up your nervous system. It's gonna force that trunk control. This is another one too, another great movement that you can use. Now, if we have athletes that struggle with plantar flexion, or we have athletes that they just lack some sense of ankle stability, what can we do? We can train them isometrically on slant boards. And we've shown different movement patterns where we've used slant boards, where we've used split squat positions with a slant board. We've used split squat positions into hip locks. And right here, this is a great way to improve that. This could be a warm-up, or this could be specific to someone who struggles with achieving dorsiflexion and then plantar flexion. This one's great. This one's great. This one's absolutely great. And I think that, and this is good for mobility, I think that some of the stuff that we run into, oh, great. Oh, this one is going to be probably a special strength exercise that I use for my shot putters and also for sprinters coming out of the blocks. I'm also watching this, I'm dreaming of like a freestyler, like a swimmer in the freestyle or the butterfly as well. So it's like you can start to think through who's going to use it, where you're going to put it in your program, and are there other alternatives to it even? And you can see too how parents or somebody who isn't as into the training model that you're using, they might see a flashy movement like this one here, and they might say like, hey, why isn't little Johnny doing this exercise? And you can explain to them, look, we're building to that exercise. Oh, this is good. Yep, I like that. Actually, you can actually sort of just see, like if you would use bands here, right? That can help with that rate coding ability. So you use bands, boom, and you come back and you can contrast that. That's a really, really cool progression. And that's the one thing that we can do then, is that with specific athletes, with specific parents, whatever it is, you can say, all right, I'm gonna put together a progression to get to this point. And we're gonna test along the way and see, okay, which progression are you at right now with the individual athlete or with the parents? And then you can create this full decision tree of exercises that help you get to that point. And the athlete might be closer to that point than you even recognize. But you've also got to look at, okay, in a sport like football where they're cutting more rapidly, they should probably be able to do most of these movements. In a sport like baseball even, they need to have that trunk control. Lacrosse, field hockey. Now you can also still train the absolute strength movements, you still train the technical coordination movements, but you're also improving their trunk control through these freaking exercises. Freaking love this one. Dude, I love this one. I actually had a while back Nick Singleton doing a movement like this because he would tend to rotate a little bit with a tight hip. And this just helps with that trunk. Boom. Great exercise. So it's like, okay, full, you know, you're looking at, okay, what's going to be posterior chain, what's going to be posterior chain, lengthen, drive up. absolutely phenomenal movements. A lot of these too, you can look at it and say, we can use these as warm-ups. Some of them will be great warm-ups. Some of them you're gonna use, if you have the Garage Strength Program Design book, you're gonna look at it and say, all right, these are movements we're gonna use on athlete day. These are movements that we're gonna use specifically on impulse day. These are movements, again, warm up or as accessories. If you think back to that duff and row or the dead bug with the band and the kettlebell, well, that's gonna be on impulse day. And you start to see where you can take this, place it into your system, and then with the individual athletes, create progressions to get to that point. So use someone like Real Game to even increase your game as a strength coach. Don't get so upset about athletes perusing the internet and wanting to become better. We need to foster that. And that's the best part about creative social media influencers and influencers that train athletes, is that they've got a brain too. They have a different perspective. They've had different athletes. They've solved all these different problems, and you can use that to your advantage instead of getting super, super negative. And I used to be that way. I used to get really mad that athletes would care about what other coaches were doing and that I was so much better. But in all reality, it's a great way to collaborate. And if you guys need help with your programming, head over to garagestrength.com. You can pick up our Garage Strength Program Design, and you can even improve your overall training by downloading our app, Peak Strength, where we have 700 different exercises to help you attain that peak strength. Because remember, freaks, if you want to become a champion, you've always got to cultivate your power. Peace.